later on the show. Now let's return to the election campaign trail, and one of the more interesting seats to watch is going to be the former blue ribbon seat of Kooyong, which used to be held, of course, by the former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. Independent Monique Ryan holds it now, and she joins us on the desk. Monique, good morning.
Good morning.
The leaders' debate, first of all. What did you make of it? Were you up taking notes last night, or did you sort of tune out?
No, I was definitely up taking notes. Look, I thought that was a bit concerning. Looking in the media, people seemed to say, oh, look, it was pretty boring and no one really scored any points. But I thought there were some really interesting and important things that came out of it. For mine, hearing the Leader of the Opposition saying that he wouldn't commit to the existence or the reality of climate change.
I think he said he'd leave it to the scientists to make that assessment.
You don't think he should have an opinion on that as the Leader of the Opposition of the country and a potential Prime Minister? I think it's a pretty important point. But I also felt that it was a bit concerning that neither of the leaders was able to take a position on AUKUS, and the fact that many people in electorates like mine are expressing concerns about our relationship with the US at the moment. There's uncertainties around it from an economic and a defence point of view. And people are saying that they want us to look at that relationship a bit more critically. Neither of the political leaders' parties were willing to do that, which I think is an ongoing source of concern within my community.
You can stay tuned. We'll have some actual polling on what Australians are thinking about the US alliance just a little later in the show.
Yeah, I mean, we've got very serious security concerns in our region. What is it about AUKUS that concerns you, and what sort of pivot would you like to see either leader make in this next term of Parliament in terms of that relationship with the United States?
Well, people are just saying that they're concerned about the unpredictability of Donald Trump, basically, as the President of the US, and given what we've seen the US government do in the last week or two with tariffs, they're saying, are we ever going to get AUKUS? You know, are those submarines ever going to actually be delivered to us? And if they're not, if the US decides to pull out on that deal at some point down the track, what's the backup plan? What other options do we have as a country to secure our defence? Also, what's the cost, you know, to us if we've already given $800 million to the US? We're planning to do that another 400 times over. If the US pulls out on AUKUS in 5 to 10 years' time, what backup plans do we have? So I have asked the government to consider a formal parliamentary inquiry into AUKUS that we should undertake potentially every 2 or 3 years. It's a significant commitment from the Australian government, and I think the Australian people deserve greater transparency about what we signed up to, what the deliverables are, the time frame for them, and what we can expect to receive at various points in time.
Bit of a health check, essentially. Early voting's about to begin because of the long weekends we've got this weekend and next weekend. Most of the policy shots have already been fired. You've probably had a pretty good look at the offerings of both parties. Is it fair to say if there was a hung parliament, you'd probably have a better relationship with Anthony Albanese? You seem to have worked with him a bit more than Peter Dutton. If you had to pick one to form the next government and you're in that really key position.
Well, to date I've worked most with the Prime Minister because he has been the Prime Minister for the last 3 years, and so the crossbenchers had greater opportunity to work with him and with the senior members of the ALP. I think I'd be very open to working with either the political leaders, or whoever the leader might be of the political parties after the election. But we do need more certainty about what they're going to actually commit to. I thought it was really disappointing that we had to wait till 3 weeks before the election before the parties came out with what they were going to offer first home buyers, which is what they did last weekend. We still don't have real clarity from the opposition in particular about how they're going to manage the energy transition. And which is one of, as Peter Dutton said last night, it's the most important thing that he would put as the centre point of any government that he led. But then he can't actually tell us how it would happen under his leadership. So I would basically, were there a hung parliament, if I'm re-elected and if either of the parties were asking for my support and confidence and supply, I'd have to sit down and talk with them at the time, because they haven't really put on the table as yet the information that we need to have to make that decision.
Could be a drawn-out process, maybe.
Yeah. Just on the energy discussion, some polling and some surveys suggest that Australians are quite open to the idea of having increased gas reserves, domestic gas reserves here in Australia. Is that a policy that appealed to you, albeit you're saying there's not enough detail, but are people in your electorate keen to have more domestic gas supply?
People don't want to have to Australians to be paying more for gas than the overseas markets pay for our gas. And we've seen that in Western Australia, they've had a gas reservation in the West since 2006. West Australians pay much less for gas than East Coast Australians do. And so people from the East Coast would like to have a similar situation where we're not actually basically paying above the odds for Australian gas. Many people have suggested in the past that a gas reservation is a good idea, and I think for as long as we remain dependent on gas, which I would hope would not be for too long, that we should have a situation where we receive it at a reasonable price. The devil is in the detail, and that's what Peter Dutton has not provided as yet. Such modelling as he has provided suggests that it would bring down the cost of gas by as little as 3%. That's not a cost of living crisis answer as far as I can see. And really, I think we could probably do a lot better than we're doing right now. We're selling our gas off overseas. We're receiving nothing. We've never received $1 in the Petroleum Resources Rent Tax on Australian gas to date. You know, successive Australian governments have disadvantaged Australians and cost us billions in dollars by not getting appropriate returns on Australian gas.
Just before we let you go, you and the other so-called teal and community independents, whatever you'd like to describe yourself as, ran on integrity, doing things differently, particularly to the former government. I'm not going to ask you about taking the sign of your husband. You've answered that on the ABC before. There is a story in the 9 newspapers this morning with Liberals saying that push polling is being used in some teal seats against their candidates. Is that happening? Are you aware of it? And would it be something that you would support?
I'm not aware of any polling in the electorate of Kooyong. I certainly haven't undertaken any. And I wouldn't know what questions are being asked of people if that is happening. I think push polling is not ideal. Polling that then seeks to influence the way that people think or
that's the allegation in this story in the 9 newspapers this morning. I think it's happening in a very seat close to you, held by Zoe Daniel, apparently.
Okay. Yeah, it's not something of which I have any knowledge, but I don't think it's a great idea.
All right. Monique Ryan, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Well,